All right, well, we're going to change gears here and welcome in our guest for today's show. Very happy to have me as Bellator featherweight Mike Richman joining us here on Bloody Elbow Radio. Mike, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and of course, you are coming off a big win Friday over Chris Horodecki at Bellator 64 at Caesars Windsor in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Here we are a couple days after that one, Mike, and is the feeling worn off yet of how big a win that was for you?
You know what? It hasn't worn off yet. I guess I'm still pretty excited about it. Still pretty stoked. I knew before the fight that this was my opportunity to really make a name for myself, and to make a big splash into the MMA world. And I didn't want to go in there by decision. I wanted to go in there and really kind of put it on them. So, it's been pretty exciting to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, how have you gotten, calls from people who saw your fight? What's kind of been the feedback been from your circle of friends, family, and, maybe even people you haven't heard from in a long time?
Oh, the phone has definitely been going off the hook like crazy. People calling, leaving voicemails, shooting texts, a lot of support, even on Twitter. I think I, ganged over, just in that one night alone, I ganged over like 100 plus followers and just still growing. So it's been really huge, gaining new fans, and then, the support of family and friends and everything at home has been just awesome.
Yeah, to me, I was actually there at the show, sitting there cage side, and I was very impressed by what you were able to do, and that's kind of an understatement. I felt like you were in there with Chris, and you just did not let him breathe. I mean, was that kind of your game plan coming in, just to get right up on him?
Yeah, that's usually kind of my style. Me being a southpaw, I like to get in there, establish my cross right away, and then utilize my hand speed. I really like to stay in the pockets, slip punches and counter, and walk people down. And I think he didn't know what to expect, really, when he saw my hand speed. I caught him off guard. I could see it in his eyes after I landed that first solid cross. And then I just continued to stick with my straight punches and my head movement, my footwork, and my boxing abilities to really just throw him off. I was actually surprised he didn't adjust, maybe even try to shoot. Maybe his pride kicked in and he wanted to continue standing. He didn't want to get outgunned by me. Also, he kind of has that really kickboxing, high volume, a lot of hooks, a lot of wide punches, which fits in perfectly to my style. I'm surprised he didn't try to, I don't think he threw one straight cross, or, many straights. So, I definitely caught him off guard, and I just kind of kept in his face and to finish him off.
Everything you just said to me makes me feel like that maybe he took you a little bit lightly, because those are all kind of like hallmark signs of something like that happening. Do you think that was the case?
I know he's been in the game a long time, and I wanted to think that he wasn't going to take me lightly. I hope he didn't take me lightly, and maybe he did a little bit. I know in interviews he said, he expects me to shoot on. He said, once he puts his hands on me, I'm going to shoot in. I kind of laughed at that notion. I think he was kind of looking at my record with definitely more submissions than TKOs. And he probably, he knows that I train at the academy in Minnesota with a bunch of high-level wrestlers and grapplers. So he probably was just assuming, that I was going to shoot in. And it would be kind of like another Mike Corey type of fight. But I'm a completely different fighter than what he imagined.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. And how did it feel like going in there? Because, listening to the crowd, I mean, it seemed like, out of all the fights on that show, he was the biggest fan favorite of any fight in there, and you went in there, and I think you stunned everybody, because I think, even the crowd obviously was just thinking, oh, here's the guy they brought in for Chris, to beat, he doesn't really, what is he going to have? And then you silenced him, knocking him out in 83 seconds. I mean, did you kind of feel some redemption when you were able to silence the crowd like you did?
Oh yeah, that felt fantastic. You know, fantastic. That you know, coming in, as I'm walking out, I'm getting booed. As I get introduced, I'm getting booed. He walks out to a roaring crowd. They announce his name. I mean, he had probably the loudest ovation, like you said. So it was to hear the crowd silenced was a pretty sweet feeling. You know, it was silent for about 10, 15 seconds, and then there started to come some cheers after that. So, you know, they were probably just cheering because he woke back up. Maybe not for me, but it was good to silence the crowd. Hopefully, I got some Canadian fans after it too. So.
Yeah, you know, that silence is interesting because I noticed that as well, and it's kind of like I remember there being a UFC fight in Australia. I think it was last year, and one of the Australian fighters lost. You know, real quickly got dominated. Similar type of fight, and the crowd, like, you could hear a pin drop in the crowd. You know, with 15,000 people at the UFC, and I thought that this was kind of a similar situation when you knocked him out up against the fence. I mean, did you kind of was that kind of eerie with how for you? You know, you just won, and here you go, you're celebrating, jumping all over the place, and you could again hear a pin drop.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, immediately after I knew it was over, I mean, like you said, it was dead silent. You know, all you could really hear is me freaking going nuts. You know, it was almost like I felt like I was in an empty building. You know, I'm sure the fans, like you said, thought, oh, they're just bringing in another can for freaking Hordecki to blast through, and I just blew their mind.
Mike Richman joining us here on Bloody Elbow Radio. And, Mike, we have some questions rolling in for you from our listeners, so I'm going to go ahead and get to a couple of these here. One person wants to know, they're curious how much weight you have to cut. They say you seem like a bit of a big guy for 145.
Yeah, I walk around, you know, before a training camp, I'm like 165 plus. You know, me being a fat body would be considered like 167, 168 when I'm really chunking out. But once I'm in a training camp, I walk around at like 160, between 160 to 163. You know, I'll fluctuate during the training camp, and then, you know, 3-4 weeks out, that's when I really start dieting down. So I would say, you know, I'm not too big. I definitely felt, you know, watching Chris, you know, in previous fights, and, you know, he looked a lot bigger on TV. I expected him to be bigger, you know. He fought at 155. I mean, I fought at 155 in the past too, but I still, you know, felt bigger than him when we were in there, so it was weird.
Someone else wants to know, as someone who competed on the regional scene for a while, what kept you motivated to fight even if you weren't making the big checks, and what got you into the sport?
Well, after, you know, when I was coming towards the end of my Marine Corps career, before I got out in 2008, you know, I was a huge fan of the sport, huge fan of MMA. I was originally, as a kid growing up, a huge boxing fan. So I always, you know, I really felt like I was born fighter mentality, and I just wanted to. I knew inside that I had what it took to compete in mixed martial arts and to be successful at it. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I got out of the Marine Corps, was to pursue fighting. I remember my platoon sergeant at the time, now as Gunnery Sergeant Blanco, he laughed at me. You know, I was a great Marine, got out as a sergeant, and he was like, really? You're going to get out and you're going to start fighting? He didn't think I was serious. And, you know, I got out. And then, yeah, as far as staying motivated is, you just keep on grinding. A lot of it has to do with I just like to fight, so I know if I just keep going out there, keep grinding, you know, keep winning and trying to take advantage of, you know, the opportunity, and I know it's eventually going to come, so I just got to run with it.
How'd you end up in Bellator? How'd that all come about? How'd you get signed for this fight?
My manager linked up with one of the talent relations guys, Zach Light, and pretty much before my last fight, win Bellator, they're like, hey, you win this fight, we want to sign you to Bellator. I won that fight. They signed me to Bellator. Then I went down. I did a lot of little photo shoot, video shoot stuff, and then that's when they brought up, you know, me fighting Chris Hordecki, or however you pronounce it, and it kind of went off from there. I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to fight Chris Hordecki. I didn't want to take the easy route. I didn't want to. I initially, signed a tournament contract, so I was supposed to go into the fall tournament. I was supposed to have like 2 undercard fights before that, and I didn't want to take the easy route and fight local, local cans. I've done that. I wanted to prove to all the haters that I have that I can compete. And once they said Chris Horodecki, I'm like, yes, I want that fight. I don't care. Let's do it. I understand my tournament spot's there to lose, but I don't care. I want to fight him. And then I made it happen.
So this has definitely punched your ticket into the fall featherweight tournament?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, how excited are you for that?
Oh, I'm super stoked. Super stoked. Right now we're still trying to figure out, if I'm going to take another undercard fight before the fall tournament or if I'm just going to, wait it out and then train and totally focus on the next tournament. So it's still a little undecided on that aspect, but, the tournament's definitely mine.
What's kind of your feeling, your preliminary feeling right now about that? I mean, because I would assume as a fighter, you want to get in there and fight, but then, it's obviously, it would be a high risk, low reward type of situation.
Yeah. It would definitely be one of those situations where it's my spot to lose. So it's like, I understand that, if I go into another fight, let's say I lose decision, whatever, it's kind of tough to try to throw a fighter coming off a loss into a tournament. So it's definitely something that we got to talk about, depending on the opponent, but also depending on the time. I was talking to the Bellator reps, and then we can squeeze you in another undercard fight in July or August. So that's pushing pretty close to the fall tournament, depending on the actual start date. So I might be rolling over really quick into the tournament. So, I just, part of me wants to just focus on the tournament, and part of me, like you said, as a fighter, I want to get in there, fight, make a little more money, so we'll see.
You mentioned a few questions ago that you wanted to fight Horodecki to, prove the haters wrong. Where does that come from? Can you kind of explain that to me?
That stems from, just some haters that I have, from Minnesota, and then some people, a lot of people don't know that I was on a tough 12 for the short seconds that I was on there. I lost a decision to Aaron Wilkinson. It was out of my weight class. I definitely did not perform to my capabilities. I didn't perform. I wasn't ready then. I wasn't with the academy. I wasn't training with high-level guys then. It was just kind of one of those things where I just missed out on that opportunity. And my biggest concern was I never, I wanted that second chance, because my biggest worry you can attest to it, is you never hear from these guys again. People that don't make it into the house, you never hear about them again. And I didn't want to be that guy to never be heard of again. I wanted to make it, and that was another, a motivation to get out there and dominate. So I guess that's kind of what I mean by the haters.
Okay. How have you changed as a person and a fighter since losing that tough 12 fight?
As a fighter, definitely upped my wrestling and my grappling abilities, just wrestling with the top guys at the academy. And then as a person, I guess I'm the same person. I'm still Mike Richman. I'm still kind of a same personality. I definitely changed more as a fighter, the mentality, training at a high level. I was working a full-time job while I was I was working, training at a lower level gym, so I was training part-time. I was only getting in so much time a day. Sometimes I couldn't get in there because I had to work. The stuff that everyone, all other fighters go through at one point in time in their career. But I think it was just the aspect of training at a high level with high-level grapplers that really elevated my game.
I was checking out your Twitter earlier today, and I noticed that you had a post from Friday where you were hoping that some of the other fights would end early on the main card, so your fight could make it onto the show. I mean, were you kind of disappointed that all 4 of those fights went to decision?
Yeah.
It's kind of bad luck right there.
Yeah, it was. Well, because after my fight, then I went out and talked to Bjorn. He's like, "Hey, man, great fights, exactly what we brought you here to do. We wanted you to be, that's why they had us early, me and Chris earlier instead of a later undercard, and the show is to, ignite the crowd. But also, he expected it to be a great fight. He told me, he's like, hey, hopefully, if there's a quick stoppage in any of these televised cards, we're going to slip your fight into the MTV2 portion. And I'm like, sweet. So I'm sitting there cage side, watching the rest of the fights, and, they're all going to a decision. So I'm like, crap. Didn't make it on, but, still a lot of people saw it on the internet, so.
Yeah, that leads me into one of our questions here. Bellator actually just put the whole fight up on their YouTube page today, and they want to know what's your opinion on Bellator putting their fights on YouTube, and have you noticed, have you gained any more fans because of them doing so?
Oh, I think it's sweet. I think it's sweet that they put it up there just so more people can watch it. Because it's a live stream, and sometimes people don't replay the live streams. There was actually another video up there from a different source on YouTube that reached 19,000 plus views, and a lot of good comments, good feedback. But then Bellator ended up having it taken down because of the copyrights, and then now Bellator actually, their YouTube site put up the fight. So now those are starting to get hits, and people are starting to watch it. Good comments and good feedback. There's always going to be people that have negative comments, like Chris Hordesky's overrated, or the stand-up wasn't that great, or you're always going to deal with that in every victory. But it's great that it's on the internet and people can see it and gain more fans by the day. So I'm still grateful for that.
Bellator featherweight Mike Richman joining us here on Bloody Elbow Radio. And Mike, I guess we'll wrap it up here with one more question today. Everything, the last couple of days obviously been very whirlwind for you. What's, going forward here into 2012 and into that fall featherweight tournament, why should fans be on the lookout for you in that tournament?
Well, I think fans should be on the lookout for me for exactly what I did on Friday. Is I'm going to bring that in every fight. I'm going to have exciting fights. I'm going to have those Bellator moments, and I'm going to give them the flash. I'm going to give them the knockouts, TKOs. I'm going to give them what they want and what they pay to come see for the people that are in the live audience. And I'm going to give the people what they want to see on Friday nights on TV. So I'm just trying to make a name for myself. I love this sport, and I want to do this for a while. So.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks so much for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait until we can do it again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, guys, for having me. It's pretty sweet stuff.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Bellator featherweight Mike Richman joining us here on Bloody Elbow Radio, presented by Bad Boy here on BloodyElbow.com. Matt Bishop here today. Brian Heminger had to leave early. He's on assignment for MMA Mania right now, so I'll be taking you through the rest of the show here today. Looking for your reactions on our interview with Mike Richman. Very enjoyable, and that's kind of something I've said it here before, and I've said it to Brian, is that I love talking to these guys who really aren't, who are just getting out there, and that's what I like about talking to a lot of the Bellator fighters, and that's especially what I like talking about, talking with Mike Richman as well, because just a fun time there, and I like being able to, really learn a lot about some of these other fighters.